Hey fuckers. Yeah, you like the beard? I stopped drinking soy milk and it just showed up one day. Yeah, I just like woke up and I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. It's pretty amazing. Uh, anyway, so today I want to talk about propaganda, and in particular, I want to talk about something that a teacher once said to me about propaganda and propagandistic arguments that I think is really useful in understanding how they work. And it's not really very like sectarian. It can be used to analyze propaganda from any political viewpoint. Although I'm going to use an example that's definitely going to piss off some right wingers. So anyway, what he said was every propagandistic argument comes with something he calls a yada yada moment. So the yada yada moment is when someone basically just stands back and says, "Well, I think that speaks for itself." They leave you to make the jump between the argument that they've made and their conclusions when their argument and their conclusions don't quite line up. So the key here is that a lot of times people will make like 80% of a logical argument. They'll follow logic in the direction of their claims as long as it will take them. And then when it stops being useful to them, they just stand back and say, well, I think I've proved my point, when in fact they haven't. So they'll make something like 85, 90, 95% of a logical argument, which sometimes makes it appear to some people that they've made a completely irrefutable claim, when in fact they haven't. An argument that is close to logical doesn't count. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Unfortunately, logic doesn't quite work that way. So one example that I'll give you that I found quite useful is cultural Marxism. So what is cultural Marxism? If you're one of the 4 people on my YouTube page that doesn't know what cultural Marxism is, it's basically a conspiracy theory pioneered by the Nazis. That's not conjecture, by the way. You can Google cultural Bolshevismos. It's originally a Nazi claim, like literal Nazis, like from the Third Reich. So the claim is basically that the Marxists, the communists in the Nazis' day, want to infiltrate society from the inside and use decadent art and culture to destroy civilization. So that's the original claim. It's been somewhat modified to fit a modern context. People usually sling this at professors, like, "Oh, you're a secret Marxist. You want to use your influence to destroy society." They sling it at some artists sometimes when they disagree with the political content of that artist's work. They'll say, "Oh, you're a cultural Marxist. You want to destroy society," etc., etc. So there's a couple of things wrong with this claim, and one day I might make a video going over just exactly why it's silly and how it works as a piece of ideology. But today I just want to focus on finding the yada yada moment in this claim. So basically, when people are trying to argue that cultural Marxism is a real thing that we face in society, their argument will go something like this. There are Marxists. Yep, that's true. Some of these Marxists are artists, content creators, and a lot of them seem to be professors. Yeah, that's totally true. These artists, professors, and content creators sometimes implicitly advocate a Marxist agenda through their work. Okay, that's, probably true. I haven't seen it in real life, but I'm just going to take your word for it. Therefore, these people are part of a neo-Marxist plot to destroy the West. So if I'm missing something in this argument, if there's more like empirical validation that someone's found, please link me to that in the comments. But mostly, this is how this argument works. Now, it's not stated the way that I've said it, because I've said it in a very clear way that makes it sound pretty silly, because it is pretty silly. Usually the way that it's stated is somebody proves that there are a lot of professors who are on the left who try to kind of convert their students, and they say, therefore, cultural Marxism is real. So you can see where the jump is being made, right? We're moving from individual actors who are maybe abusing their role as a professor. I, in fact, don't think it's an abuse of your role as a professor to advocate for a political philosophy. And I say that having taken several classes with right-leaning libertarians. Actually, the guy who told me about this theory is a libertarian. So if you're pissed off, I guess get pissed off at libertarians. Anyway, so people will make the jump from individual actors, individual professors who have certain beliefs that they sometimes spread, whether accidentally or intentionally, to their students through their classes. They'll make the jump from that to, therefore, there's a shadowy cabal of people who are trying to destroy Western civilization from the inside. And you can see that this is quite a jump in the way that I'm stating it, but maybe go out into the world and see some actual people arguing about cultural Marxism, and see the way that they actually make this claim. So here's an interesting question for you to ponder, and for me to probably also ponder. How do you fight this? When you see it, whether on the left, the right, or some non-political flat earthers making this yada yada claim, how do you fight it? Well, here I basically naively believe in the power of discourse and rational argumentation. People are basically reasonable when they've exhausted all other excuses not to be reasonable. So sometimes you have to be very patient, but I think that mostly people will understand rationality if they just talk things through long enough. And I think that dissecting someone's argument in front of them and saying, okay, so you're saying this, and getting feedback from them like, yes, I am saying that, that's exactly what I'm saying, or no, that's not really what I meant by that, helps a lot of people sometimes. Although, fuck, I might be wrong, I'm just some guy on the internet. One thing that I do sometimes is I will ask someone to bridge the gap entirely. So they'll say, yeah, there are professors who are pushing Marxism on their students, and I'll say, yeah, okay, so, and so when you ask them to bridge that gap themselves between the yada yada moment, when you ask them to like jump over that gap themselves using logic, they'll see that there is a gap there sometimes, although sometimes not really. Anyway, I hope that's been useful for you, or at least I hope that you've been very, very deeply upset by this video and you're about to write a nasty comment. So I will see you next time.